For thousands of years, human civilization has been the source of astonishing discoveries, scientific wonders, and incredible achievements. There is a darker side to the history of humanity, however, defined by our ability to inflict excruciating pain and unforgivable acts of cruelty against others. Torture is the affliction of severe physical and emotional suffering upon another human being, and it is known to have been carried out since ancient times. In the 21st century, torture is forbidden under international law because it is never justified. Anyone who is accused of wrongdoing has the right to a fair trial. The thought that torture ever existed is horrifying, especially when you realize how cruel and degrading these punishments were. Sensory torture in particular is probably one of the most cruel and depraved punishments to ever emerge from human consciousness. We create content for curious and inquiring minds, so don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more informative and enlightening discussions. There is no doubt that physical torture is terrible as it is, but there is something disturbingly sinister about sensory torture. These punishments use sound and silence to break people down, emotionally and mentally. Sound and silence torture is a category of psychological warfare which is used to shatter the will of prisoners with loud music or white noise. And unfortunately, the regulations surrounding sound and silence torture are not as stringent as they are regarding physical torture. This means that in some parts of the world, people are still being subjected to this inhumane punishment. When it comes to interrogating prisoners, one method which is used to extract information from them is to force them to listen to extremely loud music for days, weeks, and even months at a time. The decibel level of the music is deafening, and when it goes on for long enough, it psychologically weakens the mental and emotional state of detainees. Whilst the music is playing, the prisoner can't talk to anyone else or even hear their own thoughts. They also experience sleep deprivation because there is no way they can sleep properly whilst the music is playing so loudly. The history of using sound as a torture device dates back hundreds of years, to when the Aztecs would use a death whistle in order to instill dread and fear in their enemies before they attacked. This form of punishment causes serious harm without leaving any visible traces. Sound torture was also used as part of a combination of interrogation methods in Guantanamo and Abu Ghraib. Research has demonstrated the devastating effects of sound torture, and it has been associated with sensory deprivation, sleep deprivation, food and drink deprivation, as well as stress positions. White torture, on the other hand, is the complete opposite of sound torture. The objective of this technique is to force someone to experience complete sensory deprivation and total isolation. Essentially, a prisoner is held in a cell that deprives them of all senses and identity. Visually, the prisoner is deprived of all color because their cell is completely white. The walls, floor and ceiling, as well as the clothes they wear and the food they eat, are all white. Neon tubes are positioned above the occupant in such a way that not even shadows appear in the enclosure. On an auditory level, the cell is completely soundproof. An important part of white torture is the utter silence it imposes upon the prisoner, and their cell is therefore void of any sounds, voices, or social interactions of any kind. Even the prison guards stand in unflinching silence and wear padded shoes to avoid making any noise. For weeks, months, or even years, the prisoner cannot hear anything or anyone but themselves. The devastating and debilitating effects of this silent torture are well documented. With the passage of time, the prisoner becomes depersonalized and detached as they lose any sense of identity and individuality. It has long been known that extended periods of isolation cause hallucinations, episodes of psychosis, and even complete psychotic breakdowns. The truth is, there is no form of torture that is more humane than another. Even though a prisoner is not physically harmed when they are forced to experience sound and silence torture, the long-term psychological and emotional effects are absolutely devastating and can live with the prisoner for the rest of their life. These types of torture are particularly worrying for human rights advocates, and this is because they are not illegal in the way that physical torture is. What's more, since this form of punishment doesn't leave any visible scars, it is much harder to monitor and illustrate how widespread these torture techniques are. What cannot be denied, however, is that psychological scars caused by such extreme sensory deprivation amount to some of the worst punishments which have ever existed in the history of humanity. We hope that you found this thought-provoking and interesting, and if you did, then please like, share and subscribe to this channel for even more content like this.